Welcome to Empowering Homeschool Conversations, your authority in navigating the world of homeschooling diverse learners. Featuring Peggy Ployer from SPED Homeschool, Annie Yorty from AnnieYorty.com, Leilani Melendez from Living with Eve, Stephanie Buckwalter from eLARP Learning, and Dawn Jackson from Dawn Jackson Educational Consulting and Tutoring. With over 75 years of combined homeschooling expertise, experiences, and perspectives, this group is eager to share their wealth of wisdom to empower your homeschooling journey. So grab your favorite mug, settle in, and get ready for insightful discussions, valuable insights, and practical tips. Give your homeschool the power boost it needs to successfully educate the unique learners in your home.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Empowering Homeschool Conversations. I am Leilani Melendez, your host for today's episode, and today we are going to be talking about homeschooling hacks for neurodivergent families. And our guest today is Felicia Johnson. She is a dedicated homeschooling mom of 8 children with over 22 years of experience tailoring education to fit each child's unique needs, having graduated 3 of her children and continuing to teach 5 more at home. Felicia has navigated a wide range of learning challenges, including deafness, ADHD, dyslexia, dysgraphia, dyscalculia, and anxiety. She is passionate about teaching her children's interests and strengths, helping them develop strategies to overcome their challenges while celebrating their God-given potentials. Her approach fosters confidence, resilience, and the skills needed for lifelong success. So thank you so much for joining us, Felicia.
Well, thanks so much, Leilani, for having me. I'm really excited to share with everybody.
All right. So the first question, because we want to get to know a little bit about you. So you've been homeschooling for 22 years.
Yeah, my oldest daughter is 26. So we always say we started homeschooling her at 4. So it's been 22 years.
Or is 26? but 8 children and with a huge range of learning challenges. So can you just share a little bit about your journey and how you first began homeschooling and some of your biggest challenges?
Absolutely. I was the friend that made fun of all my homeschooling friends. I was like, there's no way I'm ever going to homeschool. Y'all are crazy. They were sure laughing at me when I started homeschooling. But it really was because I just didn't have the resources actually available to me for my deaf daughter. So I started just researching options, and I came to find out that there was a lot of help for homeschooling and that I could provide her better than what the school district was willing to do. And so that's how I jumped into it, thinking it was just going to be for her. But then it just became a no-brainer for my following children. So here I am 22 years later, still doing it.
And what were some of the biggest challenges you think that you ran into?
Well, I mean, first it's just the overwhelm. You know, you think you're responsible for teaching this kid who doesn't even speak your language, how to read and write and do math. And so the first big hurdle challenge was learning a different language so I could communicate with her well. But even if we're not learning another language, we're having to learn new vocabulary. We're having to learn new expectations for our kids than we thought we were going to have when they have different challenges than we expected. So I think that's the first big challenge, is just getting over that hump of like changing our expectations of what we thought we were going to do with our kiddos.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay, so I'm going to get into the meat of it right now. Okay, so it sounds like you're focused on building confidence and resilience. Or it sounds like you focus on building confidence and resilience in your children. So how do you balance the need for structure with allowing for flexibility and creativity in your homeschool day?
Yeah, so I am ADHD as well. So that really affects a lot of how our homeschool day runs. And I know where my kids get it from. So we run more on rhythms than schedules. That is one way that we make it work. We have milestones that have to be reached throughout the day. So if you want to have computer time, then you have to get your reading and math done. If you want to have movie night on Fridays, you do your Friday chores before movie night. Like, we have milestones they have to reach, right? And sometimes neurodivergent kids need milestones that are immediate, not so long term. So that, again, I try to keep them for the day and not so far out. But we have rhythms within the day. We have different parts of the day that school is done, different parts of the day that animal chores are done, different parts of the day that outings happen. I don't stick to a hard schedule, and we just do the next thing. I know for some planners out there, it's really hard to comprehend not planning out how many lessons you're doing each day. But it has really worked for us just to keep moving through, and we get as far as we can during that allotted time, and then we just move on to the next thing. So we do that. I also give lots of opportunities for kids to explore their interests. So the only book work we do is going to be the 3 R's, reading, writing, and arithmetic. Everything else is going to be pretty hands-on. We use 4-H for a lot of hands-on projects as well, but we give them lots of time to play with materials. I've got a mechanic. He likes to play. He has a truck outside that he plays with. I've got a animal kid, so we have goats and chickens that he's out there building things for and learning more about his animals. So it depends on the kid and what their interests are. And I'm constantly putting them into contact with other experts, because obviously I don't know everything. So it's really just giving my kids a chance to experience the world and experience things that interest them. And then I use those interests to motivate them to get through the boring stuff, the reading, the writing, the arithmetic. We use that as a motivator to get to the things they want to do.
Okay. I'm writing stuff down because there was a couple things that you said that I thought was really, really good. I think, first of all, I think it's amazing that you're willing to admit you have ADHD, because I just did a podcast review on this podcast. Me and another co-host talked about ADHD, and it's just so interesting just how many of us have been, with that. Mm-hmm. And we're having to adjust. I also like that you said that you run on a rhythm and not a schedule. Mm-hmm. And I've heard that before. I've never heard the term rhythm before. I really like that. I've heard rotations versus schedules before.
Yeah, and sometimes they say routines.
Yeah, routines. That's what I was trying to say, routines instead of schedules. But I love that term rhythm, because that really just kind of sums it up. And then the milestones, the immediate milestones. So I was going to ask you, what are some examples? You mentioned movie night. What are some other examples of the milestones that you try to reach?
Well, for example, my 7-year-old this week had earned enough money to buy a Lego kit that he wanted, and he knew it was coming from Amazon. Yesterday, I think it was when it got delivered. He knew when it was coming, and I said, you can't open that box until your schoolwork is done and your chores are done. And so that was a pretty immediate milestone. He knew that if he wanted to get to that Lego kit, he had to get his chores done. And obviously, we don't have that happen every day. But I try to use things that they're excited about. I don't necessarily hold it over their heads, but we use it as a target. If you want to get to this point, what are the things that we have to do before that point? And I can use that with they get 30 minutes computer time after they've done their schoolwork every day. And because we're not a big screen family, that's a big deal for them to get that computer time. And so I just use little targets. We had a zoo trip coming up, and I said, I can pay to get you into the zoo, but anything you want inside the zoo, any of the rides, you're going to have to earn your own money. And so they did. They had a deadline for earning money, and they had a motivation to do that. So I try to use real life examples as much as I can. That also helps teach them to budget, right? If they know something's coming up and how to budget for it, but always giving them a goal to shoot for. And most of them are going to be goals within the day, but like the zoo trip was a goal that was a little further out, helping them think further out. But just try giving them goals so that they're motivated to do their own part.
And I'm thinking, like, in my mind with my kids, because I'm still raising teenagers, I'm thinking, like, what kind of immediate, I know, like, screen time is always a go-to and movie time, but just some of those things that
It could be pizza night. It could be, let's do something together. I mean, my kids like doing dance night or game nights. And so we try to do things together. And so, but it's like, okay, XYZ has to happen before the next thing can happen. That's that, just constantly letting them know that it takes a team to do all the things. And if we all do our part, then we all get the reward at the end, whatever it is.
I'm even thinking, like you said, game night. Like, I love game night. Having them pick out the game.
Absolutely. Yeah. We've done that. We've done contests too. Like, the person who brought me the most, pencils off the floor, gets to be the one that picks out the movie for the night or whatever, depending on what was going on that day.
Or even like shopping on Amazon together. For games, I know my kids are really big into different types of games and stuff like that. And I even love some of those logic games that also teaches why you play, but they think it's fun. They don't realize they're doing
Absolutely.
it. Okay. And then the other thing that you mentioned that I thought was interesting is that you try to put them in contact with other experts in the area. And you mentioned something about the car.
Yeah. So really, I network a lot. I'm a networker. I like meeting new people. So my oldest son, who is now 24, was obsessed with trains. He was obsessed. Like, everything we did was trains from the time he was 2. So we rode a lot of trains. I took him to tons of museums. He would talk the arm off of anybody there that would listen to him. At 12, he got to volunteer at one. And he started walking people around and telling them about trains. I just try to connect my kids with somebody. When he got to be in high school and he wanted to be a mechanic, he actually interned with another mechanic. He ended up getting the job. He now is the diesel mechanic for the Durango Silverton Railroad. So he worked himself up to his dream job. But we did this by just networking and putting him in contact with people who know things about trains, because obviously I didn't know anything about trains. I don't even know how to, do much to my own vehicle, nevertheless a train. So I had to reach out to the community to find people that would pour into my kiddos. I've got another one who wants to be a mechanic. And so we had a gentleman from the church give him a 76 Dodge pickup that he can rebuild. He's 12 years old. And that's what he tinkers with, is this truck outside. And so just reaching out to people in your community, because if they love something, they're going to want to share it as well. And that's where our kids really get this outside experience that we as parents can offer them just by networking.
Yeah. And I think you mentioned church. Church is like a really great place because you have such a diverse group of people with different talents. And we have someone at our congregation that I always sit back and I'm like, my kid should have that job because everything about his job kind of like fits in. And I'm waiting for the day that he connects. They've kind of talked about it a few times, but I don't know anything because both of my boys, they want to be engineers. And I don't know anything about engineering. You ask me about teaching and education, I can help right along.
Yep.
But engineering, I can't do a thing. And so I'm always looking for different people to just kind of connect them with. And,
absolutely. Yeah, that's a great way to do that. Just finding experts, and they don't have to be like, you don't have to find the top expert on something, just somebody who loves it as much as your kid loves it. And so, because not only are they sharing knowledge, they're sharing passion, and that makes a difference.
Yeah, it really does. Yeah. And the other idea too, that God always brings the right people in their path, who they can connect with.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's really cool to sit back and watch.
Yeah, it is. It was really cool. And I also like I don't know, do you do any homeschool co-ops or anything
we have
in the past?
We have in the past. When you have a lot of kids, I think it's harder. Yeah. Just because you've got a vast age range and you've got kids that are just so far different as far as what they're interested in. So I think it makes it a little harder. We're all going in different directions.
Yep. I know, like my kids are in one thing, they're all in that one thing.
It makes it a lot easier.
Yeah, it does. It does. Okay, so next question. What role does failure play in your homeschooling approach? And how do you help your children navigate setbacks without losing confidence?
We have a lot of failure here. That happens. Some of my kids, I'm going to say some of this is going to have to do with personality of your kid. So I have some kids who quit all the time. They're constantly, I quit. I'm done. I can't do this. Of course, they go back to it eventually, but that's their gut reaction, is to quit. But I think a big part of that is failing with them. Like a lot of these skills, like you said, you know nothing about engineering. I didn't know anything about engines. I know a lot about engines now, because after doing it for 22 years. But you fail with them, you mess up with them, you know, and them seeing you try again, I think makes a big difference. And then letting them know that it's okay that we failed. If you have a perfectionist kid, they're going to be really hard on themselves. And I think they're a little harder because they think they should do it right the first time. And so that's a little harder, but really it's just life and letting them see you fail and get back up, and then doing it with them as well, whatever their project is that they're working on.
Yeah. Well, and they all have different personalities. And
Yeah.
you mentioned perfectionism, which I think that I mean, I'm not a therapist, but I've noticed that perfectionism goes a lot hand in hand with neurodivergent kiddos. I've noticed. How do you navigate that with perfectionism, like specifically?
So, actually, I have a little bit to say about this topic.
Okay.
We're country people, and one of the phrases that we use a lot is "a horse kicks you off, you get back on." And that's just the way that I raised my kids. And we physically have done that. Me and my daughter were thrown off a horse and we got physically back on the horse. And so that has a real meaning in our household when we say that. But it's true in all things. And I have a kid who is a perfectionist. He thinks that he should have to do it right the first time or not do it at all. So it's really hard. He's my one that quits all the time on everything. And it takes a lot of diligence on the parents' part to keep pushing, not in an aggressive way, but we just constantly go back to it. It's like I give him his break when he's mad and he wants to quit. I let him have his break. I let him walk away, and then we go back to it together. He was really mad at his truck. He wanted to sell all of it for parts. He was done. He wasn't going to do mechanics anymore. And so I took him to our local auto shop who does a lot of old parts, not just new parts. I took him there and I said, hey, let's get some parts. And so we got to talk to the guy and ask about, and he hunted down some parts because finding parts for a 76 Dodge is not really easy. And he hunted down some parts for him. But you know what? He came home and he was excited again, and he was working on his truck. He took his carburetor out and put it in a box because he learned that he'd have to trade that one in for a new one for the core. And so sometimes it just takes relighting that fire again. And we did it together, and it wasn't like I was yelling at him, or it wasn't like you have to finish because you started this. It was like I let him have his moment. And then we found something else to talk about, found another entryway. It is very slow moving. You can't be in a hurry with these kids because if he's frustrated, he's not going to do a good job. So if you're forcing him to do something and he's ready to quit, he's not going to do a good job. So I really give him more time than I give any of my other kids. But when guitar is another example, he wanted to quit guitar. He's been practicing now for 4 years, and he can finally play some chords. You know, it's very slow going, but I think the value in it is the fact that we keep him going instead of letting him quit. Mm-hmm. But it's not a forced, like, no, I paid for this, you're going to keep doing this. It's well, why do you want to learn to play guitar? Oh, maybe you could play. We're going to have a music night tonight. You know, we're going to have a jam session, just us at home. Maybe you could play your guitar for us. And if he has a purpose and he has a goal, again, this is milestones again, I think that it really helps keep him on track.
Yeah. I was thinking about that with my son too, with the guitar, because my son also plays guitar. And one thing that we got him involved with at our congregation, they started a youth band.
Mm-hmm.
And I just having him in the youth band, even though there was another guitar player, but they kind of teamed up and played together, it kind of helped motivate him. It was that fire that you were talking about, just lighting that fire.
Mm-hmm.
So
they have to have that motivation to do it, and you have to kind of help prod them along, because you don't want them to quit and walk away from everything. You want them to learn how to finish. Yes, some things aren't worthy to finish. Okay, that happens. That's life. But you want him to at least see the end result of whatever he's working on, get as far as he can without just quitting because he's frustrated.
Yeah. And that's like a life skill that I think all of us are still, I'm working on that too.
Yes. Parenting is definitely refining ourselves more probably than it is the kiddos.
I know, I feel like just seeing myself inside of the kids, and oh, that was me when I was a teenager. And yeah, that would be a bunny trail to go on. But
yeah.
The different personalities, the perfectionism, the quit. Oh, modeling. Talking about refining ourselves. That's like a really nice transition. Modeling, the idea that we're modeling how to overcome obstacles. Oh, that just reminded me too. This might be a bunny trail on Bluey. I end up watching Bluey all the time because I have an 8-year-old, so she loves Bluey, and that I love that show. But they said something in there today. I was watching it about the obstacles aren't going to move themselves. And the mom was like doing the obstacles and the kids were following her. And I was like, oh, that is such beautiful modeling and such a good teaching lesson. Anyway, that was such a bunny trail. So modeling though, like what are some things that you can think of with modeling for our kids besides like learning from Bluey?
Well, everything. They're always watching us. Oh gosh, my worst place is driving and the way I react to other cars. And I know my kids are watching me. And so I really have to, control myself. Or it gives me an opportunity to talk about it. Hey, I know Mom got really frustrated with the cars today, but that's probably not the best way to handle that, so it does open up opportunities. But they're always watching us. They're watching everything we do and how we react to people, how we treat other people. Even like simple things as phone skills, they're only hearing our side of the conversation when we're on a phone. So what are they seeing? What are they learning from us without us actually teaching?
Okay, so I was on the phone yesterday. Like, this is full confession. I was on the phone yesterday and my daughter was sitting next to me listening to their own conversation. And I just started talking about I'm just going through something right now. But she looks at me, she goes, Mom, stop gossiping. Stop it. Stop gossip. Like, she's recognizing that in me. But then I realized I'm also modeling. And also I've told her not to gossip. So it just like comes around. And yeah. And texting, you mentioned the driving. I have my son, we have to go down to the DMV to get his learner's permit, but he has all this testing and stuff. But he's all like obsessed with like watching me drive. And the big thing is don't text Mom, don't text and drive.
Yeah. My kids was the rolling stop. Mom, you didn't stop at that stop sign. I was like, yes, I did.
I know. Well, I started to think about my actions. And, coming from a Christian home, like those things that my character, my personality, all those little things, my anger, that's another one. Like how many times when they were little that I just brushed them off or I got mad at them. And now that they're older, I'm seeing that come out of them. So
yes, they're good copycats.
Yeah. I also think with neurodivergent, a lot of them do, if I'm not mistaken, learn from doing and from their environment.
If you've got ADHD kids, they're definitely going to be your more hands-on learners. by doing with you usually. If you have, autistic kiddos who are big, got to follow the rules, have a set, and you're breaking those rules because sometimes there's things that are bendable, right? And a lot of times our neurodivergent kids don't understand that bend. That there's exceptions, that, there's certain places where one thing is okay and another place where it's not okay. And so sometimes we just have to take a little extra time to explain that and help walk our kids through those situations. But yeah, they're always watching and we have to be careful. It doesn't mean that we have to be perfect. It's just, noticing that and catching it and, having those conversations with our kids. Why did we make that bad decision? Or why did we choose to go serve this family and not serve another family? Or, whatever we are doing, but living with our kids side by side.
Mm-hmm. So I know you said you had kids with ADHD. Do you have any on the spectrum?
So none that have been diagnosed on the spectrum, but because they do overlap, ADHD and autism overlap a lot. So I've got hints of OCD going on. I've got, so we've got a lot of the same issues. In some of my kiddos, my deaf daughter she doesn't have any white matter in her brain. And so she doesn't necessarily have a diagnosis for that, other than she processes information very differently than normal people. And one of the things that she has done to understand the world, it's a very OCD habit, but she's very much all about checks and balances and lists and do's and don'ts. And she's very, OCD about a lot of those things, because that's just how she's had to organize stuff in her brain to help her live in this world. And so I see a lot of that. My 12-year-old is got ADHD among everything else. He also has a lot of OCD tendencies, and I think he does that to help process the world around him, to understand what he's seeing and how to interact with other people.
So then, because I know we mentioned earlier where we talked about you run on a rhythm, not a schedule, and you mentioned the daughter that it's by checks and balances. And I know with my daughter that has Down syndrome, like we have her, like, you do this in this order at this time. Everything's like very specific what you do. Mm-hmm. So then how does that, like, having that routine and not a schedule, and you're mm-hmm. how does that work? Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, it doesn't sometimes. And a part of that, I always felt like my daughter needed to learn to live in a world where everyone wasn't going to follow her schedule. Everyone wasn't going to go by her, requirements. And I think part of that created where she did it herself. She's like, okay, everyone else isn't going to go by my schedule, but I am. And she started to take responsibility for her own schedule and her own order of things. Now, she is a firstborn, so she's a little headstrong. And so she just decided that was how she was going to do things. We have lots of frustration. She's been through lots of counseling to help her deal with transitions. She had a hard time transitioning through middle school. And so she's held down 3 different jobs now. She's 26 now. And all of her jobs, this has been an issue because she has, they tell you this set of rules when you get hired, right? This is the way we do things. Does everyone do them exactly like they do? No, they don't. So she doesn't understand that. She gets angry. There was times where she was like upset with the customers. I'm like, honey, the customer's always right. You can't get upset with the customer. So it's lots of conversations. It's lots of mistakes. It's because she does get very frustrated with the fact that the world doesn't run the way she thinks that they should do it. But part of that's learning. It's a lot of learning. She may be 26, but she's probably emotionally, 16. And so it's still a lot of adjusting and learning. Today she went and got tires on her car. So that was a big deal. And learning how to talk to the people without getting upset with them, because she has a certain expectation of what they should do for her. So it's a constant conversation. And I'm going to throw this in here, this little tidbit, because years ago when she was about 12, I was really frustrated because I couldn't figure out what her brain was doing, and I couldn't figure out why I couldn't teach this kid to read. And it was just really frustrating. And I found a neurodevelopmentalist, and I cornered her because I just needed help. That poor woman. I was like, I need help. And so I told her, what my daughter's MRIs look like. I told her about what she could and couldn't do. And I said, I just need help with this child. And she looked at me and she said, now, she goes, I'm going to let you know that from that MRI and what your child is doing, she shouldn't be able to do any of it. But her brain has compensated because our brains are amazing. And she's figured out how to do things. She goes, so that's good. And you need to be happy and excited about that. She said, but second, everyone else thinks they're on an 18-year plan with their kid. But some of us are on 30-year plans. Some of us, we need to get out of the mindset that our job is done in 18 years. And that is so true, because our kids always need us, even when they're adults, even if they're neurotypical. Our kids need us. There isn't a deadline for this parenting gig. But for our kids that need a little more help, we need to prepare them to be independent as they possibly can. Yes. But we also need to be looking at it as a long-term commitment relationship, like we should anyway with any of our kids. But we need to get out of this 18-year deadline. You know what I mean? Like, we just need to think about this a little more long-term. And my oldest has done very well for herself. She's very independent. She's lived on her own. She's worked her own jobs. She is back at home now. But that was for personal reasons. And she does very well. She just needs help navigating things sometimes. And that's okay. That's what we're here for.
Because we're all supposed to kick our kids out when they turn 18.
Right.
No, I think that's funny how we're homeschooling, and we're homeschooling because we don't want to do things the way that the public school did. Yet we still have some of these ideas that randomly pop in our head that are directly taught from the public school system.
Well, it's how we were taught. Yeah.
Yeah, that's how we were taught. Yeah. No, we're done. Yeah. But yeah, I think that applies with everyone, not just neurodivergence or
absolutely
anything like that.
Absolutely. Yeah. But we have to have our mindset in the right place so that we're not getting where we don't feel like we messed up or we did something wrong because our kid isn't ready to launch at 18,
Right. Okay. I'm going to move on to the next question. So as a mom who has successfully homeschooled children with a variety of challenges, what is one of the most rewarding moments you've experienced in your homeschool journey?
Well, my favorite thing is always seeing them succeed at the one thing they love doing. And I love it. I love seeing them do that. My son we call him my poster child because his ADHD created this hyper focus thing in this kid, and he was so obsessed with trains, and I just took it and ran with it. I was like, okay, you like trains, what are we going to do with trains? And we wrote papers about trains, and we did studies of aerodynamics, and we turned everything we could into trains. We've ridden trains all across the United States, and so seeing him take that and then learn how to be a diesel mechanic, and then take that and actually do diesel mechanics on trains, seeing him progress in the one thing he loves. And now he's a daddy. So that's even really fun. Just seeing them succeed is it's just the icing on the cake. I just love seeing them succeed at the one thing that they just love. My deaf daughter is obsessed with flowers. She went to floral design school, and has her certificate in floral design, and she just loves it. She's also very good at photography. So seeing her take her skills and her talents, even with all of her challenges, and be able to just, in her mind, succeed at something that she loves, that is my reward for all of this. It's just seeing my kids use the talents that God gave them to do the thing that they were created to do.
What about the little kids? Because I don't think you mentioned much about them, if that's okay asking.
Yeah, no, it's fine.
What are those? Yeah. The
people always want to know the end result. So we usually talk about the older kids, because they're kind of, I'm done. Now they have to do their part kind of thing. It's like, okay, how did I get them to point A to point B? But The little kids, I mean, we talk about my 12-year-old a lot too. He's the one that we call him our alphabet soup kid, because unfortunately that kid got everything in our family. But he's also very interested in motors and the way things work. And so we do lots of hands-on things, lots of power tools, lots of tinkering, lots of building. And so I love seeing him because he's my quitter. Remember, that's the quitter. So whenever he finishes something and he is so proud of himself. It's still that same thing where they have succeeded in something they wanted to do. So even if it's small things and not big life-changing things, it's still amazing to see them when they know that they did something and they finished it and they did well.
Even just finishing your assignments too.
Yeah, they don't get as excited about that as I do, though.
You're like, I'm done.
They're more excited about the song they played on the guitar, or, the ramp they built for their bike, or those are the things that excite them. And I like seeing them excited.
And I'm sure, you mentioned the 12-year-old likes motors. Does his older brother come over and do stuff with him?
He does. They live about 6.5 hours away, so we don't get to see him often. But yeah, no, most of the work he's done on his truck has been with his brother.
6.5 hours. Wow. But I've noticed, like, even just with siblings, how they just, they're part of the same family. They have, like, just a lot of similarities, but they can help each other out, especially the older siblings teaching the younger kids. I mean, do you see that a lot in your family?
Yeah, that's definitely a blessing of a large family, is we usually have what we call buddy systems. And so we have a buddy that helps an older kid that helps a younger kid. It's really nice. It's not always beautiful, but when it is, it's very beautiful. But yeah, we definitely have older ones teaching. Like, I have my 22-year-old lives at home, and she's my introvert animal kid. She's also a farrier. Like, she's very into animals. And then my 14-year-old is also my introvert animal kid. And so those two do a lot together. They're always out doing the goats and the chickens and the rabbits. And those two really like to work outside together.
Oh, you have goats and chickens and rabbits.
Yeah, we have a little homestead. Yes. Well, we always got stuff to do. That's what ADHD people can't be bored,
Yeah, we'll go crazy. No, you're just like, it's so funny when you said to me, like, it doesn't always go well.
No,
like,
not
you always
always
hear the good stuff, which is really encouraging. But, like, there are bad days too.
Yes. And personalities clash, and when you live with somebody, all their stuff, all the good stuff, all the bad stuff. And so it's a little easier to get upset with them when they do dumb things. And so we have siblings that don't agree with each other. We have siblings that don't like each other. But you know what I always told my kids, because my oldest was very difficult to live with, and her personality. And I always raise my kids with, sometimes we have to learn how to hug the porcupine, and y'all get to practice every day hugging the porcupine. And that's just part of, showing God's love to everyone around us. And so we have to be able to hug the porcupine sometimes. And that's what we're doing.
Have you ever gotten, like, little stuffed porcupine?
We have a stuffed hedgehog.
A stuffed, okay. Well, it's not really porcupine, but
it's close.
I was thinking modeling. I don't know why my brain went in that direction, but modeling with the porcupine, or like a pin. No, that wouldn't be safe.
Well, my daughter, my 22-year-old, actually works with zoo animals, and she actually takes care of 2 porcupines. And so she's taken the little guys to go meet them, and they always bring me home porcupine quills. And so that's a very good visual.
Okay, yes. There could be so many jokes. Like, I can think of so many different jokes, but like using those real world examples, or even like having inside jokes like that too, helps. Actually, what is it? I heard when you have laughter, it's connected with memory, and you remember things more. And
sure.
So I don't know.
Yeah, we
signpost to
definitely
just
have our
remind
jokes.
everybody
Like,
that it's true.
well, one of my things was like I raised my kids like to understand their differences, their challenges. Like my first daughter being deaf and she had to wear a hearing aid. I always told her, I was like, you wear a hearing aid, but I have to wear glasses. I was like, we all have challenges. We all have something we have to overcome. But if we can figure out what that is, then we can find the right tools to help us overcome them. And so we are always making jokes about our differences. We're always making fun of ourselves because we are broken people and none of us are perfect. And that's not the expectation at the Johnson household. We are not perfect.
Right. And no judgment either.
Right. It's just how God made us. And now we learn how to work with that and do the best that we can.
Yeah, I love that. Okay. So the next question is, how can families create a homeschooling environment that supports both neurodivergent learners and the parents' needs?
So it's going to be different for every family, right? Every family has different requirements that they want to see. It's always changing, I will say, because as our kids grow, their needs change. And so it is a constantly changing thing. The one thing that's been consistent for us is the way that we learn things, in the sense of like I said, I've never been good with a schedule. I don't think we've ever had a schedule in all of my homeschooling. I probably tried at the very beginning and failed miserably. I was like, okay, this isn't going to work. But we do lots of read alouds, and read alouds may be fiction, but they may also be science. They may be field guides. Like, we discuss things and read them together. For chemistry in high school, my kids read Thomas Gray's Molecules out loud. And it was hilarious, and they enjoyed it. Like, it's a nonfiction book about the periodic table, but it was just a good read, and we read it out loud. So we've always learned that way. We've always learned on field trips. My kids call me Miss Frizzle. That's been my nickname for years, because I'm world known for turning anything into a field trip. We used to go to the grocery store. We lived in Texas with HEBs, and they always had this big, huge cheese section. And so we would go to the cheese section and we talk about how they make cheese and where it comes from, like what country, because some of them came all the way from Italy. And I would turn that into a field trip. I would turn everything into a field trip. Lots of hands-on things. And then at home, just we have craft supplies that are available. We have Legos that are available. We have wood and nails and things outside. Just giving them opportunities to explore. We have a garden. And not everybody can do everything, right? I think when you have more kids, you have more hands to do different things. And so that helps as well. But really, it was just constant opportunity, either through materials or through networking and people, and just putting my kids in touch with these things. And that's kind of my only consistent thing I've done over the last 20 some odd years. Our days look different all the time. We just have our bare minimums we have to get through. So parents' needs, kids' needs, they change all the time. And you just kind of have to be willing to change with them and make it work. And there is a balance. I mean, one of my things is I can't have stuff everywhere. I need a path through my house. I don't want to walk over your piles of Legos, and I don't want to walk over, whatever creation. So for me, I'm like, guys, you're going to have to find a home for this. And so that's just one of my requirements. And, but their requirement is that they have Legos that they can get out and dig and whatever with them. And so you have to find that balance, whatever stage you're at, and just figure out what's going to work. And sometimes you try things and they don't work, and you just got to try something else.
Yeah. When you said the grocery store, I keep imagining you with your kids at the grocery store and like all the other people around just kind of listening in. And then by the end, you have like this group of people following you, like at a museum.
It definitely starts conversations, I will say. Yeah.
With like people. Yeah, definitely. And then also I was thinking, mom needs to get groceries. We're going to make a field trip.
Yeah.
That's a need that we need. And I love the more kids, more hands. Cause I'm listening to you. And when you said that, I was like, oh yeah, she has 8 kids. Because I was like, I don't have a garden. I don't have a farm, but I also don't have 8 kids.
Right.
More hands, more kids.
Right.
But in the same time, it's hard I would think, I don't know, you correct me if I'm wrong, that it's hard to find things for them to do sometimes. Or are they
Always.
just,
I think though there's a skill in that. There's a skill in teaching our kids how not to be bored. Like if you're bored, that means you need to find something to do. And my kids have learned. So it's funny. My older kids learned you don't tell mom you're bored. And I never taught that to my younger kids, but the older kids taught the younger kids, you don't tell mom you're bored. She will find something for you to do. And so we have something hanging up in our house called the board. And I have a list of things. If you are bored, here's a list of things that can be done. And so they've just learned not to tell me that they're bored, because then they're going to have to go do a chore they don't want to do. And so they get good at finding things to do.
Nice. So it's like a board.
It is. It's a dry erase board.
Written on there.
And it's BORED, board, BOARD, the board. And I write on it the tasks that need to be done. And so if you're bored, let's go do something. And so one of them is dig post holes. I've got a kid who loves to dig post holes. And so when he's got time, hey, buddy, I need 4 post holes. Go dig them.
Yeah. Oh, wow. I've seen the board jars where they have a bunch of slips and you just pull a slip out too.
Yeah, they probably have more fun things in their jar. My list isn't really fun things. It's mostly chores that need to be done.
Yeah. But what about your time, like your quiet time?
So I have a rule. Yep. I have a rule that if mommy has hot coffee in her hand, you can't climb on her. You got to leave her alone. So I get my coffee time. As long as I have hot coffee in my hand, then they leave me alone.
I think some of the moms are like, well, then I'll just hold my coffee all day long. No.
Yeah.
But
I think they would say that wasn't fair. I think my kids would call me out on that if I did that.
Yeah, no, I get it. I like that rule a lot. Do they also watch each other so that you can have a moment to escape if you need it?
Yeah, I mean, I have adult children that live at home, so that's a little different for us.
That's true.
Because I have kids that can help. If I have a meeting, like right now, they're outside while I'm having a meeting. So, which is nice. It definitely is an advantage to having kids with spanning age gaps. So.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's true. Because my husband's home, but my kids are watching each other and they're not adults, but they're teenagers. But yeah, that's true. I didn't think about that. Okay. I don't know if there's anything else you want to talk about. Anything you want to mention? Any encouraging words for any parents out there?
Yeah. Let's see. Encouraging words. I have loved homeschooling and the relationship it's given me with my kids. It has not been easy. It's been a really hard, bumpy road, but my adult children love coming home and hanging out with us. And they like to critique me on how I'm raising the younger set for sure. But it's such a tight knit community that family culture that we've created through homeschooling. So even if it is bumpy and rough and you think your kids are never going to like each other, just keep at it. Like, this is a huge blessing for you and your family. And it has been really a blessing for us. And like I said, it has definitely been refining for myself. Like, I have had to grow up so much, and I've had to really lean on the Lord for help through a lot of these situations, especially when you're trying to decide which professionals to include, which therapies, which doctors. When I started, I'm just going to reach out to the special needs community here, really, is that when I started with my daughter and we were having 2, 3, 4 doctor's appointments every week, all the testing, and your whole life kind of revolves around your special need kiddo, and the other ones kind of feel left behind. It's just a season. And I let my kids know that this is just a season. And I always try to make time for each kid so that they would know that it's not all about my oldest, in her sense. And now it's my 12-year-old. We're going to all the appointments for, there's going to be the right people for them and the right season. And so even though we do therapy, that doesn't mean we're always going to do therapy. We only do it for when I feel like it is breathing life into our family. It is breathing life into my child. But there are times to take breaks. You're not going to ruin your kid taking a break from therapy. God chose that child to be the way that they are for a purpose and a reason. And I just find beauty in that. And now I can say that because I'm looking back on years and years of doing this. And I know that when we're in the heat of it, it's really hard and it's really exhausting. And you just feel like you're not doing anything right. I put my oldest in school when she was in 5th grade because I thought I could never teach her to read. I thought I was going to ruin her because she wasn't reading past a 1st grade reading level, and she was at 5th grade. And I put her in school, and the teacher had the exact same problems teaching her to read that I did. So it wasn't me, it was her brain. It was the way her brain functions. Language is a frontal cortex thing, and she has a really hard time accessing frontal cortex. And so it's just her. And so just having that teacher, who was a wonderful Christian lady, walk beside me and help me through that was a real growing experience for me in that, because I realized that I am doing good for my daughter, and we have a relationship. It hasn't been beautiful all the way through, but we have a really strong relationship because we've walked through really hard things together. And I think that's part of the blessing in raising these special kiddos.
Yeah. So now we want to know, where can our listeners find you? Find more of your work, resources, advice on homeschooling? Where can they find you?
So I have a little corner on the web called thetailoredhomeschool.com. That's really just to find my products and a little bit about me. But I am pretty active on Instagram and Facebook at The Tailored Homeschool. That's where you're going to find me most of the time.
The Tailored Homeschool. Okay.
The Tailored Homeschool. Yep.
Yeah, we'll probably have those down in the show notes as well, too.
Great. Thanks.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank everyone for tuning into today's episode of Empowering Homeschool Conversations. If you're looking for more resources, support, and encouragement on your homeschooling journey, be sure to visit Homeschool Heroes, which is powered by Sped Homeschool. At Homeschool Heroes, you're going to find free downloads, a supportive community of parents, homeschool-friendly providers, and expert consultants ready to help you confidently teach your child at home. Plus, there are some tools that you can explore, products, services designed to simplify your homeschooling efforts, all from a trusted nonprofit that understands the unique challenges of homeschooling children with learning differences. So join us at spedhomeschool.com to connect with resources, inspiration, and a community that's here for you every step of the way. So let's make your homeschool journey extraordinary. And once again, I just want to thank you so much for chatting with me today and with our audience. And I know a lot of people appreciate this. So
thank you so much for having me. It was a lot of fun.
Good. I'm so glad. It was fun too. It was a nice little break. A nice little break from life.
Absolutely.
All right. Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
This has been Empowering Homeschool Conversations, provided by Sped Homeschool, a nonprofit that empowers families to home educate diverse learners. To learn more, visit spedhomeschool.com